Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm curious, what rules do you have that govern your life? One thing that I find in talking with other women physicians, and certainly has been a part of my experience, is that we are very good at creating rules for ourselves or incorporating and um, really internalizing rules and rigidity in an effort to appear infallible, perfect, to be good enough. There are so many emotional experiences that are baked into this that I really think we need to explore it. Now, this came to me this morning as I was getting dressed. I have the day off, and here in Washington, it's been a little bit sunny and a little bit warm. We're still in early May, and the weather's going to be kind of all over the place. But I knew it was going to be sunny and a little bit warm today, and I wanted to wear some pants that are not quite capri pants, but they're probably about 5 inches above my ankle. So a little bit of leg exposure. Ooh, don't get excited. And I thought about it for a minute and realized, I haven't shaved my legs. And I was like, well, is it okay to wear these pants? And it just came to light that thou shalt not go out without shaved legs is a rule that I generally have had for myself at various times in my life. Now, has this been an absolute? No. Have I learned to let go of it? Yes. But still that trained thought that, ooh, that's not okay. That's not okay. And we could sit here and argue up, down, and until tomorrow, right, about whether or not that matters. Let's let go of that argument. But it is simply an internalized message, an internalized rule that I have that, oh, we don't do that. You don't do that. We shouldn't do that. And it came to me of like, oh man, there's another spot, right? Where I have an internalized rule that I've picked up over years, culture, socialization, right? That really doesn't matter and really doesn't add anything to my life. And so we're going to talk today about a process to go through to just take a quick look at some of the rules that you're living under, trying to figure out, does this make sense to me? Do I care about this? Is this important? So that if you find that you have a rule that you're living under that is not adding any benefit to your life, we can learn to let it go. This is something that I see over and over again in women physicians in particular, other high achieving professionals, right? We are so trained to want to be the best top performers, right? To be good enough. And there's so much perfectionism and rigidity that gets baked into that. So tell me, what rules do you have for yourself? Are you I have to get the work done before I can play? I have to pay attention to everyone else's needs before my own. We can say that manifested as, mom always sitting down to eat last, right after everyone else has been served. Maybe you have rules about clothes that you can or cannot wear. Maybe you have rules about activities that you can or can't do, words that you can or cannot say. You might have rules about the way that you behave in certain situations. You might have rules about, well, until I get to inbox 0, I'm not allowed to do this other thing over here. This shows up in different places in our lives, but it is such a common thread, and it's really one that we have to choose to unlearn. Otherwise, we find ourselves buried in more and more and more rules and rigidity. And I don't care who you are, that often leads to more and more burnout because the tighter and more rigid everything gets, the tighter and more rigid everything gets, right? Leaving very little room for you, the human, to be a part of your own life. Now, what I am not talking about here is being sloppy, being unsafe, going completely off guidelines, just being so cavalier that you don't care about anything. we can very easily fall into this black and white thinking of, if I don't follow the rules, these rules that I've internalized, this rigidity over here, then I'm going to be this sloppy, terrible, unsafe person over here. My friends, that is not true. We tend to think it's all or nothing. But in this silly little example, right, me not shaving my legs, I don't care. No one else cares. If someone looks at my hair, the hair on my legs and sees that there's some fuzz there and they have a judgment about them, I don't care. I don't care. There are different times in my life where I would have cared because I would have seen that some kind of an indictment on my personhood, right? But I choose not to care about that. Now, that doesn't mean that the rule doesn't pop up, obviously, because I shared in the example that happened. But we have to choose to learn how to decide if I'm going to keep something or let it go. Does this have value in my life or does it not? Is there anything good here? Or is this serving no purpose? So let's start with the first part of the equation, which is that we have to find the rules. The way that we can think about doing this is when we have thoughts of, I can't, I must, or I mustn't, I should could be a little squishy. That may or may not be a rule, but when we have that very firm idea in our brain, we want to do something, we want to say something, and automatically we can't, we shouldn't, we must, kind of this command language sort of comes into our thoughts. There's probably a rule there. And it's worth pausing and just asking, all right, what is the rule that I have? What is coming up for me? So I might, have some free time and be trying to figure out, what am I going to do? Now, typically when this happens, right, the default mode is, what work tasks do I have to do? What is on my to-do list? What must, be checked off before I can do anything else, right? Because I have an internalized rule that, yes, I'm letting go of, but still work in progress like so many. Oh, I must get all the check boxes done before I do something else. But my friends, that is an undoable task. There is a never-ending cascade of to-dos that we do not have the time and energy to complete, right? I can come up with a to-do list that runs into next week, no problem. And yet I will never have the time to complete all the things. And some of those things are going to be a good idea for us to do, right? You know what I'm talking about. There are many things, if you live in a house or an apartment, right, there are many sort of maintenance things that would be a good idea to do on a regular basis, and yet you're probably not going to do a lot of them. And life is going to keep going on. Now, yes, of course, there's some consequences, right? If you don't do any of them, if you never clean your dishes, you're going to run out of dishes, right? You're going to have a sink full of stuff, and I don't know, there could be bugs and stuff. So you're probably going to do some dishes at some point. But there are other tasks, that have pretty low consequences. Getting a little bit off topic here, but if my default is that I always must check off all of the to-do items before I do anything for myself, I will never have time for myself. This is such a common rule that so many of us are running around with, that I must complete all the tasks before I take care of myself. That comes from a good-hearted place. It comes from the, Protestant work ethic of, we have to do all the things before we relax or rest, right? You might have a rule of, I can't rest until I've earned it. Tell yourself that you need to let go of that. And rather than keep that rule, which of course institutionalizes burnout, no matter what you are and who you are, And decide instead, when I practice that line of thinking, right? When I find myself thinking I have to do all the things before I'm able to rest or play or spend time with people or just veg out, I will never have the time for myself. So instead, I'm going to tune in, right? So instead of believing the rule that I have to do all the things before I rest or play, I'm going to tune in and I'm going to check, where is my energy? What's been going on this week? How am I doing emotionally? If I don't have the bandwidth to do tasks and I need rest, I'm going to be better off resting and deciding to rest than to stick with the rule that I need to slug on and get through all my to-do list before I take care of myself. Now, that is such a common rule pathway that many of us have, and you know where that leads. That leads to total and utter exhaustion and burnout and overwhelm. And we are going to stop doing that. So if you have a rule that falls along the lines that we have to do all the work before we can rest, play, spend time with ourselves, spend time with people that we love, let's identify that rule right now so that we can start to work our way through it. What other rules do you have? And again, sort of thinking through that language where I can't, I must, those command words. What is that for you? Write them down if you must. I use must. Now, the next step, right, is once we've identified those rules that we've internalized, we need to ask ourselves, what role does this rule serve? Who does it serve? So many of the rules that we have serve other people. And that's not necessarily wrong, right? When we adopted the language in medicine of the patient comes first, that was well-intentioned. That was well-intentioned to center the human body who is experiencing whatever they're experiencing, in the very real landscape of patriarchy, racism, sexism, trying to make sure that we are attending to the needs of the human body that has something going on that we as healthcare, providers need to be able to address. However, if you live your life always thinking that the patient comes first or that other people come first before you, what happens, right? That is always serving other people, and that leaves very little space for you because there are only so many hours in the day. There are so many other people in your life that you affect on a regular basis. It doesn't matter where you are in medicine. It doesn't matter who else is in your life. This is a very real phenomenon. Who is this rule serving? When we are trainees and we are taught, the patient comes first, the idea is that we need to refocus our attention so that we are thinking about the patient. But it has become so inculcated in our culture that we can very easily internalize that means that I am always last. I am always last, as a rule, is leaving you on the road to total burnout, exhaustion. I am always last is not serving you in any way, ever. Now, when we are at work, when we are attending to the needs of other people, whatever setting that looks like, yes, we need to attune our attention to what is going on. If someone is coding and we are involved in the code, yes, we are not going to stop in the middle and go have a bathroom break. But if we have been doing chest compressions for 2 to 3 minutes, right, there is a role for swapping people in and out, right? We have to let go of the ego that tells us, that I need to do it all. There's a reason why we are supposed to swap people in chest compressions, because it is physically and emotionally exhausting to be doing that in a real life situation, right? And again, we need to be able to attune. So that is a very specific situation, right? I'm not going to take a break to go have coffee, but I am going to rotate in and out. We're still 100% focused on this patient who is in 100% crisis. Most of our situations are not a code. Most of our interactions with humans are with humans who are not quite that sick, and not clinically dead, right? As in a code situation. We need to adjust our mindset around patient comes first, which means I always come last, with respect to the work that we're doing. If the patient always comes first and I always come last, means that you are chronically running way over time, that you are always pushing your work to the end of the day, that pajama time charting, that you are never pausing during your day to use the bathroom, drink water, eat food, take care of your real human physical body, right? That leads us into trouble. That harms our physical body. So not only do you always come last, but you also are accumulating stress and damage to your own body, which ultimately takes you out of the pool of people who's available to help others. We have to maintain our own well-being to stay in the game of providing care, especially in the context of a broken healthcare system that would very happily keep us working 24 hours on, 24 hours off all the time. I was seeing a post recently on Facebook, and they were talking about being in a Q2 call situation. Now, this person shared anonymously in a physician group. I don't know what the specialty was. I only know that there was some lead up from going from a Q4 call schedule, which is rough, to a Q2. Didn't provide the details of what their particular call situation looks like, but regardless of even how busy it is, that person knows what it's like to be on the hook, Q4, and Q2 is on the hook all the time, essentially, right? Because you are either on call or you are post call all of the time. And this person shared that, this had been a long run up to this situation where they went from Q4 to Q2, and the administration knew about it, and they had talked about it many, many times, and how untenable that was going to be. And now they are in that position, right? This is the game right now. And it's really a game of chicken between administration and the humans who are put into this situation. I am sure that this individual cares deeply about the work that they are doing, wants to provide good, safe care, but they don't want to do it in a completely untenable situation that was seen coming for a long period of time. These stories are so prevalent. It is really abominable in our system that we would do that to human beings, that we would do it on such a regular basis. But that reinforces this rule of I always come last and people always come first. Now, there might be situations where someone is temporarily in this position, right? That is different. That is different when you are asked, to help somebody acutely, and you were on call and you were asked to work Q2 temporarily. But we all know that many of us are put into situations where it's not temporary. Maybe it's verbalized as temporary, and yet there is no motion to hire someone else into that position. We have to put down this internalized rule that gets reinforced elsewhere that I always come last. Now, in that particular situation, right, if this person is feeling completely victimized in the situation and feeling like they have no autonomy, we have to step back from that. We have to look at this rule. We have to see, me coming last is really not serving me. It's really 100% serving my administration. It's really not serving the patients, because that is, You don't want the doctor who is on call Q2 taking care of you, especially if you are very sick. You do not want that, my friends. We know that. Other people don't know that. But if you stick to your own rule of, I can't leave because that will make the situation worse. I can't abandon the patients. I can't abandon the other poor colleague, right, who would essentially be Q1. If we don't take the action to take care of ourselves in that situation, then we are not to blame. We are not to blame, but we are allowing that situation and that rule to persist. Think about that. So I would never, ever blame any of us for coming up with a Q2 call schedule. We did not create that situation. But if we agree to it, if we continue to work in it, if we feel like we have no choice, if we will not take ourselves out of that situation and we allow that situation to be there, even though it is unsafe, it is unsustainable, then we are believing the rule that I always come last, and we are allowing the system to perpetuate a completely unsafe practice of having, physicians and other practitioners who are putting their bodies to the extreme and who are not going to be safe to take good care of patients. You can see how deeply this thing runs and how it affects us in a very real life setting. I don't want to have surgery from someone who is on call Q2. I don't. Now, we could argue, well, it's never that busy. They don't get called that much. It doesn't matter. Being on the hook to get called a lot is stressful in and of itself. And especially if you run a little bit anxiety focused, if you are hypervigilant from having had situations happen to you where it was too much. Who does this rule serve? That is the question there. The third thing that I want us to ask when we are looking at these rules, when we are thinking about who do these rules serve, the third question is, who am I without this rule? If I put down the rule that I always come last, what does that create for me? If I let go of the thought that I always come last, then that means that sometimes I might come first. Now, I can decide the degree to which that is true, how often I come first, how often I choose to take care of myself first, or, perhaps second. How often do I live that way versus the patient comes first? And how often are we somewhere in the space in between? Who am I without the belief that the patient always comes first and that I always come last? I am probably somebody who is at the very least practicing better boundaries, who has this idea that in order to sustain a sustainable practice, my friends, right? If you want to be able to stay in medicine, if you want to be able to continue to use your knowledge and skill to take care of other humans, you will need to have rest. You will need to have a well-balanced life, because if you are always overworked, underslept, not taking good care of your physical and emotional health, not connected to other human beings who are important to you outside of your work, you will not be in a good position to be providing safe healthcare for very long. What we do is very important work. It doesn't matter what corner of medicine you are. What we do is very important. We need to be able to make good, smart, reasoned decisions. We need to be able to communicate well with others. We need to be in a good mental space to be able to do the work that we do. And we will not be there if we always come last on our own list, right? So who am I without this rule? I am someone who is practicing boundaries. I am someone who is taking care of myself. I am someone who sees that my self-care is critical in order to continue the practice of medicine. I like that. Do you like that? Do you have a rule that you always come last and you can see now, I need to let that go? The same way you can let go of any beliefs about whether or not you need to shave your legs in order to wear short pants, right? Silly, stupid example. But it just highlights that we are holding on to things that add rigidity and make us out of alignment with something that we want. Now, did I need to wear these pants today? No. Do I like that we are getting into a season where, yeah, I can not be wearing heavy sweaters and pants and, I can choose to wear something that's a little bit lighter. I wore sandals today because I have a cute pedicure. Yeah, I wanted to do this. And if I told myself I couldn't because I didn't shave my legs, right? That's the consequences of that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I could have gone either way, but I wanted to let go of this rule because it wasn't adding anything to my life. No one is harmed. I don't care. I don't care about people who do care either. To be quite honest, I don't need their opinions. Don't care. Who am I without this rule? I'm someone who dresses comfortably. I'm someone who chose to do something I want and go out and have a lovely day. That's who I am. I like that too. Who am I without these rules? So whether it's something so silly and small or something so deep as the rule that you might be carrying around, I always come last, or I have to do it this way. I have to climb the ladder in this way. I have to stay in this job. I can't possibly leave this practice and go somewhere else. I can't leave medicine. I have to do it this way. All of the rules that you're carrying around, write them out. Take a look at them, find them. The can't, the must, right? That language that's in there. I have to fill in the blank. In order to be a good doctor, I have to fill in the blank. In order to be a good partner, in order to be a good parent, in order to be a good friend, a good daughter or son, whatever it is, just start filling in what are those rules that you have. Who are these rules serving? And of course, how do you feel about that? Is there space for you in your own life, right? Is another way to ask yourself that question. And who am I without this rule? Am I someone who feels a little lighter, a little freer? Am I someone who takes better care of myself? Am I someone who's nicer to be around? Share with this many times, right? I get up super early. I go for a walk. I don't want to get up super early. I don't like getting out of bed. I enjoy being in bed and being warm, right? And it's cold outside. But I get up and go. I know that I'm a nicer human when I do it. And being a nicer human and a human who takes care of her body and does it in a time and a way that works really well for me, right? And creates a good day, that's important to me. That's important to me. And I want to stay in alignment with that. And so, yeah, that's what I do. We need to look at the things that we're doing, the things that we're telling ourselves, whether that's, this language around rules that you have, the things that you are finding in your own self-talk, and figure out, is it serving you? And what does it create if you decide to let that go? I hope that you find this helpful. I hope that you can pull out something here for yourself that feels really important. When we step back from the busyness of our day-to-day and really look and see what we are carrying around and how that is impacting us emotionally, possibly physically, we are able to make real progress. That is the work that coaching does. It's not just getting magical solutions. It's not just figuring out, some magic efficiency technique that all of a sudden makes you, just like turbocharge yourself. It's really about figuring out, who am I? How do I want to be? What do I need to let go of? What do I need to choose to start believing instead? How do I decide to take care of myself in a way that's different from my previous experience? These are all the questions that we get to ask ourselves, and there's no place better to do it than in the safe container of a coaching environment, whether that's a one-on-one, whether that's being part of a group, but especially getting to talk and share your stuff with someone who understands you, who understands the challenges that you face. That to me has been the most amazing magic of having been coached by other physicians and being a coach for physicians. If you are looking for that support, my friends, I want you to schedule a time for us to talk. You can go to my website, which is www.healthierforgood.com. You can reach out to me. I'm Megan, Megan, at healthierforgood.com. You can send me a message and find out how you can start working with me. It's time to crack open the beliefs that we've been carrying around for so long that are keeping us stuck. I'd love to help support you with this. All right, my friends, until next week, take care.